thank you for the opportunity to have this conversation with you. You have been teaching people all over the world, not just the culture of Spanish, but also English language and but the bilingual voice. And that's something that me as a bilingual, it's kind of like cool to learn other languages. And but I'm wondering, how did you start and discover your path? Why Spanish?
Some people might tell you that their path is very linear. Mine was very much like a labyrinth. So throughout all of my life, I've had this thought of there's got to be something more out there in the world. And so I'm from Ohio originally, literally grew up in front of a cornfield. And that there's got to be something more thought really took me to upstate New York, where I went to university. It took me to living in Madrid. It took me to living in Washington, D.C. And all throughout those
Wow.
areas and moves, I really kind of figured out that we as people think that we're so different from each other, but really we're not. Really,
That's true.
we're all human. We all put on pants the same way, one leg at a time, hopefully. And so that took me to really wanting to dive into the language and the culture, specifically Spanish language and culture, because I just fell in love with it so much. So, I mean, the path to get here has been really, really good and windy and interesting and bendy. But quite honestly, it's just all from that thought of there's got to be something more out in the world, something that I can help people really wrap their brains around.
And Spanish just the that kick in, that thing that just like wow.
Yes, people look at me and they're like, but you're a redhead from Ohio. Why Spanish? You look like the antithesis of what a Spanish speaker should look like. But when I was little, my mom went back to school to become a teacher and she had to choose a language, foreign language. And so she chose Spanish and I just kind of glommed onto it. All of a sudden, it was this gibberish until I understood it. And it was just like this magical, the in books when people have like the hidden doors and it goes to like Narnia
Mm-hmm.
or it goes to other realms. It was like a linguistic Narnia for me. All of a sudden I was like, you mean that there's other music and that there's other food and there's other just ways of life, all connected to this one language? And that just was the engine that just keeps me going every day.
That's amazing. Did you learn it at a young age with your mom?
I tried to learn it at a young age with my mom. She was doing college level Spanish, so I learned what I could. I would literally take books or something like any sort of snippet of Spanish and try to translate it. But that drove me to in high school. I started Spanish, did that all 4 years. In university, that was one of my majors. So I just kind of took it and ran with it. Both, they say that you learn Spanish and the clase in the class and the calle in the street and in the cama in the bed. I've never gotten the bed part, but I've gotten just the street Spanish and the class Spanish, the book Spanish.
Oh wow. So when after you're done with colleges, you went kind of like work for companies as a translator, things like that, or you just kind of like forget about all these companies. I'm just gonna go straight to do my own thing.
You would think that I would go and work as a translator. I actually was an IT consultant, and so I was an IT consultant and project manager for almost a decade now. Because IT in the region where I am, it pays really well. And it's similar enough to where in language there are little bits of pieces, and those bits and pieces make up a sentence, and then the sentence makes up the paragraph. Well, in IT, it's
Mm-hmm.
little bits of code, and the code makes up the web page, and the web page makes up, part of the bigger one. So that I translated technology basically for a while. And that I did that until I literally could not do it anymore. And it was still that thought of there's got to be something more. Really started the spark, and I started Aprovechar in 2020.
Wow. And since you work with companies, so you know how it is. So if you know different languages, does that help you in the workplace because you know you can speak more than one language?
A little bit. So I got to basically benefit from all the other benefits of being bilingual, in that a little bit more empathy. I was better at like switching tasks and code switching and trying to make sure, I would go down to where the developers worked in the basement and I would talk IT to them. And then I'd go up to where the stakeholders were and I'd be like talking in analogies because they didn't understand tech. So a little bit, but at the same time, I never got that like good Spanish, like, yes, this is fulfilling my Spanish need. I had to go elsewhere to fulfill that Spanish need.
That. What about pay wise? Do they say that the fact that that person is bilingual can actually help with different clients, so we're gonna offer that person more money?
Yeah, that is absolutely the case. It wasn't the case for me, but there is a study out there that shows that if you're bilingual throughout the course of your lifetime, you can earn almost $70,000 more just by being bilingual. So there's definitely a lot
Nice
of benefits for it.
for that, yeah. So now, can you tell us about? I hope I'm going to say the name properly because I know it's in Spanish and Aprovechar Language
Aprovechar.
Solutions. Aprovechar Language Solutions LLC. Can you tell us about it?
Yep. So, aprovechar is a Spanish verb that means to make the most of or to take advantage of. So it quite honestly has become a mantra ever since I lived in Spain. When I was in Madrid, my host mom would always tell me to aprovechar la experiencia, or to make the most of my time there. I was 19. I was very poor. I think she could tell that I was struggling a little bit. She was like, just aprovechar today, just make the most of today. And so it kind of became a mantra. And quite honestly, you can learn Spanish from oodles. You can learn Spanish from Rosetta Stone, from Pimsleur, from Duolingo, from coaches like me, from teachers, from tutors. There are all these different ways that you can learn Spanish. And when I started my company, I thought, you know what? I don't really care if people come to me. I just care that they aprovechar all of the tools out there to learn Spanish and to really just improve and to go down this path of self-discovery, to go down the path of language learning. So that is Aprovechar Language Solutions. I offer both
Aprovechar.
English and Spanish programs, IT translation, just really fun kind of events. I want to make it as fun as possible. Because if it's fun, we'll continue doing it.
Absolutely. So now, what are the services the company provides to people?
So for the English programs, I focus on the industries that need Spanish to English teaching. So construction, landscaping, and hospitality. I just recently got certified as a TEFL teacher, so teaching English as a foreign language. And knowing Spanish, it's helped me relearn English as well, and how to teach that. On the Spanish side, I have a group and a one-on-one program. A one-on-one program is called Confianza, because confianza is both trust
Mm,
and confidence. And what I find with a lot of folks is that they will start learning Spanish and then they'll fall back because life happens.
guilty.
Same. This is why I can only order a croissant in French. Same. And really, at the crux of it is confidence. It's having the confidence to to know the language, to speak the language. So confianza, it's both trust and it's both confidence, in order to get to that next level. And hopefully I can get there myself and order more than just a croissant in French.
You are so funny. So when it's come to Spanish, one thing I realized with it is the fact that different countries speak it differently. For example, Spanish, when you go to Mexico or if you go to Costa Rica or other places, it will not sound the same, or the meaning might be a little bit different. So how do you handle that part?
This is why people like me exist. Because if you do like a Duolingo or Rosetta Stone, you get two options, Mexico or Spain. Well, there are 20 countries that have Spanish as their official language. So what I do with each of my clients is really figure out what kind of Spanish that they're going for, whether it's professional, or more social, because usually people will learn Spanish for themselves or for their family, or they'll learn it for work. And so different kind of Spanishes for different areas. And then we kind of drill down into the actual geolocation of Spanish. So I know this from living in Spain. I went from Spain to working in a Dominican restaurant. So very formal, kind of buttoned up academic Spanish, because all my classes were in Spanish, to la comida está ready. Like, ready is not a Spanish word, it's ready. So it went from that to like Spanglish. And I mean, whether people want to learn Spanglish or they want to learn Peruvian Spanish or something, there are certain ways and tips and tricks to get used to not only the accent, but a lot of the modismos or the idioms that come about. So, for example, in Spain, móvil is your mobile phone, your cell phone. In Latin America, it's teléfono. And I personally have made this mistake a few times where I'll say móvil, and then people are like, what? And I'm like, oh, teléfono. Hold on. I have another word. Let me give you that word and see if you understand that more. So, a very long answer to your question. There's a lot of newspapers. Watching the news is one of my favorite things. Movies, shows, and music. Music is another one of those favorite things, where a rapper in Puerto Rico sounds a lot different than a rapper from Spain, which sounds a lot different than, everyone's favorite Shakira.
That's true. So, how would you say that the easiest way to learn Spanish will be to communicate with other people, listening to, like you said, I remember as a kid, the number one show that was free, and when you're watching the free channels, that it was in Spanish. So I ended up watching a bunch of Spanish shows. I have no idea what they are saying, but I was watching. But at some point, I started to understand what was going on within the show itself, so I can explain to other people that what was going on. Would you say that it's the best way to go, watching shows and then, like you said, getting a coach, or what is the best way to learn it?
The best way, I wish that I could give you a formula, like 2 parts of telenovelas and like 4 parts of music. And if you just do this, then you will be fluent. Because fluency is more of a mindset than anything else. However, each person learns differently. So if you're more of a visual learner, watching a show might be very useful and keep it fun. But there's also the need to produce. So we take in language and information, and we watch our shows and we listen to our podcasts, or we listen to music, or we watch the news, or however you want to take that in. But we're going to be like Ariel without her voice, if you're a Disney princess fan like me, if we don't actually practice producing or that production. So that can be like journaling in Spanish. It can be like trying to draw a comic. It can be as simple as writing your grocery list and practicing those verbs or nouns. And also, of course, conversation. So coaches and teachers like me will work with people one-on-one to exactly determine what works best for you as far as the input and also the output. So how can you feel confident and comfortable in conversation? Because it takes a little bit to get to that part. And also, how can you make sure that it doesn't seem like a chore? Because when it seems like a chore, that's when we lose the love of the language. And that's my job, is to make sure that people don't lose that love.
Got you. It's like the passion. It's like, how did you build that passion? When you're talking about it, you can just feel the passion coming out. It's like it's coming out of you. So how did you build that?
It's quite honestly, it is the engine for not only for my business, but for myself. And the passion is a very long, fraught journey. There have been times where I did not speak Spanish for months. I was working
Wow.
multiple jobs and planning a wedding and all of the things that life comes about. But life is a lot easier to me when I do practice my Spanish, because to me, Spanish is living with those arms wide open. If you're happy, you're ecstatic. If you're sad, you're sobbing in the street. There's a reason why telenovelas have so many emotional gifts out in the world, because Spanish is living fully. And I feel in the American culture, a lot of times we start conversations with, "How are you?" "Oh, I'm good." And it doesn't allow us to connect with each other. If I want to tell you about my day, I'm not going to do it at the start of the conversation with me. "How are you?" "Good." I don't even think about it anymore. I'm like, "Oh, I'm good. Let's move on."
Yeah.
Versus in Spanish, you give each other a hug, or you give the 2 or 3 kisses or however many, and you say hello and you say, "Tell me about your day. Tell me, how has your week been? Tell me what's going on." And that sparks genuine connection. And that's the passion.
I never actually look at it this way. English is super boring. It is actually super boring. French is my favorite language, and as a kid, I grew up speaking French, and I love it. It's romantic, and then when you talk French, you feel like you in that moment of life. So I understand how you feel with Spanish. In Spanish, I try to learn it, but if the fact that I don't practice it, I just really don't remember everything. The normal thing. ¿Cómo estás? Bueno. Simple things. I can say them. But the thing is that Spanish is a beautiful language, but from a personal point of view, why do you think people should learn Spanish?
I say look at the data. I mean, there are more Spanish speakers in the globe. It's the second most spoken language out in the world. And if you don't want to deal with characters of Mandarin, which was always my issue, I was like, I can't see the letters, then I think you should learn Spanish. But honestly, I can't make people learn Spanish. I believe that it's the way that the world is going, just as far as population and language spoken. But more than anything, and this can go true with French, the je ne sais quoi, it can be true with Arabic, with shukran, like just knowing a few words will light up someone's face. And I think that that's, instead of focusing on the fluency or focusing on the grammar, knowing a few words for that genuine connection with someone, it will just be like, oh, I feel seen. I feel heard. I feel valued. And that's really all that we can give each other.
That's true. So, one thing that with Spanish is it's similar. When I was in school learning it, even I have friends that Spanish, and I used to kind of like talk to them. one thing I will realize that it's similar. Some of the words are similar to French.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I don't know. I don't know if you ever seen that. I was like, huh, that's strange.
And that's why I end up speaking Franglish every time I try to speak French. I'll start in French, move to Spanish, and end up in English. Because Spanish and French are both Latin, so they have the roots in Latin, which is why they have the feminine and the masculine endings, and they have the le and the la, or in Spanish it's el and la. That's why, nouns like a table have a gender associated with it. It's because of Latin. And so what always tripped me up learning French or trying to learn French was if you had like a really long word. In Spanish, it would just be like, oh, lamentablemente, blah, blah, blah. And you can see and pronounce every syllable. In French, it would be like 1 or 2 syllables for a really long word. And just
Yeah.
knowing the kind of rules of the game of which syllables to pronounce or what letters made which sound, just the phonics of it, I could never understand in French. But Spanish was like, oh, you just say everything. Even if you're wrong, you just say everything.
So from your experience, do you find it difficult for people to adapt with Spanish culture? Especially Americans.
I'm going to go with the political science answer, and that it depends. I think we get very hung up on immersing ourselves. And we say, oh, well, in 2 weeks I'll be in Mexico and I'll immerse myself in the culture then. And then we go and everything is strange and new and different and we don't like it. And so we end up watching American Netflix anyways. So for me, I always like to invite people to learn about a culture from their couch, similar to how you would eat a sandwich. If you wanted a certain type of sandwich, one day you can have a bite, you can have the whole sandwich. Maybe you want an entire loaf of bread. But especially Americans, we try to overcompensate because we have a lot of the all or nothing. I'm either in it or I'm out. And language and culture doesn't work that way. You can understand little bits and pieces through a show or through music or watching an interview or even reading an article about fashion or reading a blog. There are certain ways that you can understand and kind of go down this rabbit hole. For me, that was mate. In Argentina, I was meeting with a few Argentinian translators. They were telling me about mate. I was like, what is mate? I look up mate and I'm like, oh, it just means herb. What are you doing down there in Argentina? And they're like, no, no, no. It is this drink and it is this cultural thing where you have this drink. There's a certain ritual to prepare it. You have mate alone. You have it mostly with friends. Friends come over. Hey, can I make you mate? Who wants mate? And you pass it around. You drink from the same straw. In COVID, there were some changes, but it's a thing, and you sit and you drink and you talk. And in Spain, there was a sobremesa, which literally means above the table, and that is after dinner at 10 p.m. You would sit and you would talk about your day. And in America, we're so busy running around. We have food to go.
We're too busy.
Right? But it's the priorities. And the priorities dictate the culture. And so knowing some of the cultural norms of there's a different way to do this, try it, see if you like it. If you don't, no worries. If you do that once in a while. So once in a while, my husband and I will have dinner and we'll just sit at the table after we're done and talk. And then our table is not the most comfortable, so then we go in the other room and talk. And that is all about kind of partaking a different culture in my mind. It's not.
I like that.
It's your identity is similar to your accent. You make it work for you. And I am not going to go to France or to Spain and have the perfect accent in French, Spanish, whichever. People know I'm American. I still don't really know how. Just walking down the street, they're like, oh, she's American. But they do. And so that accent or that identity, that's part of me. And I can't, nor should I really want to, conform to any other accent or identity. I'm me, the same as you or you. So
Yes.
for cultures, it goes back to Daddy Yankee. Pasito, pasito, little bit by little bit. Just take what you want, suave, suavecito, and you will get there.
Yeah. So, do you have a passion for different languages and cultures, or is it just Spanish?
Spanish. I think France and French is another one. I took French in high school, enough to confuse myself. And I used to work with a bunch of folks in Montreal. So I've dabbled enough in French to get myself in trouble. But just France as a country is beautiful. Same with Morocco. Learning Moroccan Arabic. The little bit that I was there, I, got some of the basics, but it was just the way of life and, the different cultures, the different priorities and importances of things. So for me, I try to travel, and when I can't travel, I'll travel through books or movies and just try to see as much of the world as possible that way.
It sounds like you love to visit different countries and learn different things from each one of them. That's how it sounds like.
For sure. I mean, the French taught me how to dress. The Spanish, the Spanish taught me how to drink. The Latin American taught me how to relax and live life. I mean, same with the West, or the U.S. rather. So the West Coast has taught me how to just kind of chill once in a while and go outside and enjoy, versus the East Coast is very much like work and hustle. So I think with all of those, it comes to the full picture.
Exactly. Learning a new language can be difficult because I know when I tried to learn Mandarin, I wanted to just have a heart attack. So, how do you help your clients to overcome that fear?
A lot of the fear is knowing that you're scared and doing it anyway. I know, right? So for me, they'll say, well, fake it till you make it, fake confidence. And yes, that to a certain extent, there are certain ways and tips and breathing exercises and habits that I help clients with. But honestly, the other part is, and it's ironic, I'm doing this in another area of my life, is you have to train your brain that you are not going to literally die if you get embarrassed. And once you start on that journey, it becomes a little bit easier to speak and to not sit there and try to conjugate verbs in your head, and to just kind of enjoy the conversation. So often when we're first starting a language, we can't enjoy the conversation because we're too stressed out about looking stupid. So
Mm-hmm.
what I help people with is not only focusing on not stressing out because you won't look stupid because you are trying, and providing that positive environment to be like, yeah, you're on the right track, keep going, like, let's go. But it's also just a lot of hard rock practice. So finding those practice ways, and a lot of lower stakes environments, which quite honestly is why I have as many happy hours as I do, because people will come and bring their drinks or bring their coping mechanisms, and we'll practice, and they'll go, oh, I didn't die. That was kind of fun. Well, maybe I'll do the next one. And then after a while, you don't need 6 beers to say that you're fluent in Spanish. You can get away with 2 or 3 and still feel very confident and comfortable doing that.
Wow. So, do you have any plan to to help. I know that you also help people, like for example, if someone is Spanish, you can help them learn English better. So do you have any plan to kind of like incorporate companies to be able to help their employees to be fluent enough in Spanish, or the other way around?
Yes, that's my goal, at least. A lot of folks will focus on English because it's the highest priority. Their workers need to learn English so that they can, you know, speak to clients and speak to team members and everything like that. I think it's not about one side of the fence or the other. It's more about meeting in the middle. So teaching a few Spanish words or helping someone, you know, craft a text message or an email in Spanish, and also helping people understand English. And not only that, but parts of language that we need to know the most. And that's really different company by company. So someone might say, you know, these are my lower level team members. I need them to learn these vocabulary words, and I need them to be able to give and receive commands. Okay, that's a little bit, you know, it
Yeah.
gives me a good outline. Versus another one might just be like, we want our guys to be fluent. Okay, like I'll do what I can in 6 months. Fluency is more of a mindset than anything else, but there are certain ways and kind of modules to kind of get people into and comfortable with the language. For Spanish, that's your verb tenses. For English, that's your verb tenses. And then if you combine a couple verb tenses with learning some nouns and adjectives, it becomes a lot easier. And all of a sudden, it doesn't become this big hairy thing that you're trying to get around, but it just becomes like more of the steps. And that to me is why I personally love the international language framework, which I know I'm a nerd because no one else knows that it exists. But it's very much like, are you a beginner? Okay, are you a low beginner or high beginner? Are you an intermediate, low or high? Are you advanced, low or high? And it just helps people. I think we get nervous when we don't know what's in our heads. But when we take an
That's true.
exam that tells us, oh, I'm a hippogriff or I'm a Gryffindor, whatever it is, like when we get that exam, we can self-qualify and say, oh, well, I'm, you know, this language, or I'm this Game of Thrones character, whatever. That's why BuzzFeed quizzes are so important. They're so popular because you can learn yourself.
So where are you going next? I know you've been in a lot of places.
Yes. Physically, I think Mexico and Puerto Rico are both on our travel plans. Business-wise, I am launching some formal English programs, and also doing another book club for beginners. I did my first ever Spanish
Ooh.
book club in June, and it was a hoot. It was so much fun. So I wanted to do a beginner one, where we can just get together and chat in Spanish and learn some words. So
When you say book club, is that like almost like a group coaching?
it is literally like a book club. So, which does not answer your question, but what I do is I choose the book, and then we go and we buy the book, we read the book. I have a workbook
Oh,
to like guide, and then we meet for 4 weeks, once a week. And for June, that was somebody brought some tequila, somebody brought KFC one night, and we just sit
wow. It's in
and
person?
this one was virtual. So it could be in person if we're all physically there, but yeah, someone just brought some food and drink, and we sat and chatted about the book.
So pretty much the book is in Spanish itself.
Yes, so this book was Como Agua para Chocolate, or like Water for Chocolate, also a wonderful 1992 film. It was based in Mexico, and it was this magic realism book where there was some magic. It's like Voldemort was in there at times. But mostly it was based out of Piedras Negras and Texas. So you had right near the Texas-Mexico border was this family, and they had a ranch. And they had a daughter where the daughter, every time that she would cook, whatever emotion she was feeling when she cooked, she then transferred to everyone else. So that, for
Ooh.
example, if she was in love while she was making the meal, she transferred that to everyone. Everyone was, off pairing up
Yeah,
at the end of the night. If she was sad, everyone was sitting around the table sobbing. So it goes with that kind of living life with arms wide open. For this next one, I think I might do a cuento, a little story by Isabel Allende. So something probably related to Chile, and something where it just gives people a goal, and it gives people some regular practice, and it's really fun for me, where we can sit and chat about a short story or any sort of story or book, and just practice Spanish and get to chat and connect. And it goes back to that connection.
exactly. But is the entire thing, everyone has to be speaking Spanish the entire time, and then if they say something wrong, you kind of fix them? Or do they have to read the book as well themselves to allow maybe like a chapter or something?
Yeah, there were some book readings. There were some paragraph readings. There was a lot of conversation in Spanish, but there's also conversation in English, because we need to make sure that we're understanding the books. It's like, hold on, guys, is this really what happened? So for quite honestly, all of my events, I go around and I just kind of try to scope out what people's levels are, what their comfort levels are,
Mm-hmm.
and then personalize the event from there. So if I have a lot of beginners that are beginner, like I had someone join and they had just started learning Spanish 3 weeks ago. I was like, okay, so anything I say in Spanish, I'm going to say in English as well, so that you can understand it, but you can still hear it. Versus more advanced, one was a native Spanish speaker, so it was a little bit more advanced of, you know, these are the certain words that we're going to choose when talking about this chapter or this event, or something like that.
I love it. It's an easy way to actually listen to other people talking, but also to be able to practice it. The only thing is that I don't know, it might be a little embarrassing if everything come out wrong. When you're talking about pizza, they're thinking you're cursing at them.
Oh, no, it's not German. It doesn't sound so angry. German can sound beautiful. I've heard it sound very
Yes.
beautiful, but with Spanish, what I found the easiest thing is to say it in both, say both Spanish and then repeat it in English. Usually for some of my free events, I just kind of check for understanding. The grammar police does not show up there. If somebody says the wrong gender and we say el mesa instead of la mesa for the table, I'm not going to be like, no, that should be la. Um, but obviously, if somebody gets something really wrong, or you're like, that, like ano and año are one of those things where people forget to put the tilde over año for year, and they say ano, which is anus. So I'm like, probably would not be the best one to say. So I'm
Say.
gonna speak up and say something. So there are differing levels of Spanish and comfortability and just kind of some of the things that I look out for. But at the end of the day, I think people just need a really safe space to practice. And that's my goal for any event that I do. It's just a safe space, because we all screw
Yeah,
up.
yeah, exactly. So, how can someone join any of your clubs? Like, I know you have one coming up soon.
Yes, so all of that is going to be on my website under events. So that events page gets updated almost every week with certain events coming up. Some are free, some are paid, and all of them, hopefully, are fun.
So how long it will be the next one, the next club?
So the next group for August, I'm doing a webinar, I'm doing a class, and I'm also doing a pre-registration for my beginner book club. The beginner book club will start in September.
Awesome. Well, that is something, if I come, I probably will say everything wrong. But don't mind me. It's the French on me.
Same with French. So maybe we can help each other.
Exactly. Do you have any advice for someone looking to learn Spanish?
I think really the biggest piece of advice for learning Spanish is knowing the why. You have to know your reasons why, and that reason has to be a really good one for you to continue. Of course, you can get a coach or teacher like me that say, are you giving yourself grace, or is this just an excuse, for that some accountability and momentum. But it needs to be fun. So whatever reason you're learning Spanish for, know that, hold on to that, and make it fun.
Fun. I know that you starting your business has come from a passion, and especially Spanish culture is something that you love. That's probably the reason why your business is a little bit easier for you, because you're doing something that you're passionate about. But do you have any advice for other women out there that's trying to start out something like you, starting a business?
Oh, yes. I mean, yes, I have the passion. I would be lying if I said I didn't have those moments where it's like, should I continue? Should I go, or should I just close up shop? Because I think any business owner, you have those thoughts once in a while. It really comes down to, is it a thought, or is it a feeling that you are going to act on? And there are a lot of coaches and business coaches out there in the world that will try to work with you on your mindset and work with you on your thoughts and how you approach things. And all of that can be useful, but no one is going to give you the answers. So you have to know in your heart of hearts that this is what you would believe in. If your business was a person, you without even thinking about it, would run into a burning building for the values and the mission of why you do what you do. And if you don't have those values, and if you don't have that mission, your business is probably not going to last very long because we need that reason for being.
Yes, absolutely, and I believe in that as well. I appreciate you taking the time to have this conversation with me. Before I let you go, anything else you'd like to share with us?
Sí se puede. Yes, you can. Anyone can. It's got to be fun. So whatever you do in life, have some fun with it.
Absolutely. And then if you ever want to learn Spanish, you know who to call. Don't call me, because I can help you. Thank you so much, Megan. I appreciate your time.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much for having me.